Lord Darev Solen stepped through the front gate of his manor, expecting wreckage. He had been away for 19 days, a trade negotiation on the far side of the Thari corridor, the kind of trip that left no room for domestic oversight. He had sent no instructions home. He rarely did. His head steward, Paul Marin, had managed the household for 11 years without requiring instructions, and Darev had long since stopped thinking about the machinery of his own home, the way a traveler stops thinking about the engine of the transit they ride every day. But Paul Marin had collapsed with a stress fever 2 days into Darev's absence. 2 housekeeping staff had resigned the following week, citing the extra workload. His assistant, Taras, had sent him a short message about it, and Darev had read it on a screen between sessions and thought, "I'll deal with that when I return." He expected, walking through his own gate, to find the manor in a condition that reflected 19 days of disruption. Instead, the entrance hall was immaculate. He stopped walking and stood in the middle of the foyer, turning slowly. The marble floor held its high polish. The ventilation grills were clean, not dust-filmed, actually clean, the deep-cleaned kind that required removing the panels entirely. The decorative mineral lamp on the hall table was lit at precisely the right intensity, the way Paul always calibrated it, and the way no one else ever bothered to. The faint smell of the East Wing filtration system, a low chemical note that had been present for months, something Darev had grown so accustomed to he had stopped noticing it, was gone. "Taras," he said. His assistant appeared from the side corridor, carrying a status ledger. "Welcome back, my lord. The Heron brief is ready for your evening review." "I'm not asking about the Heron brief," he gestured at the hall. "What happened here?" Taras blinked. "My lord." Paul was ill, 2 staff resigned. I walked in expecting. He stopped. He was not sure what word fit. "Who managed the household?" Taras looked briefly uncomfortable, which for a Thari meant a faint tightening around the eyes. "Calla managed it, my lord." Darev waited for more. Nothing came. "Calla," he said. "Yes, my lord." "Which one is Calla?" The discomfort sharpened. "3rd floor hallway domestic, my lord. She has been with the household for," Taras checked the ledger, "3 months. Darev looked at his assistant for a long moment. Then he looked at the immaculate hall. Then he walked to the ventilation grill above the hall table and ran 2 fingers along the inner edge of the panel, the place no one cleaned unless they had removed it entirely. His fingers came back clean. He went to his study and pulled up the household roster on his desk display. Calla Venn, human, 21 standard years, hired through the domestic labor exchange 3rd-tier posting, assigned 3rd floor hallway maintenance, light fixture upkeep, window sealing, floor treatment. Previous employment, residential cleaning service 2 years. Notes in the file, 2 reports submitted to the maintenance coordinator in her first month, flagging minor issues. 1 response on record. Nothing after that, though the reports continued. Darev could see the submission timestamps marching forward in the log, 1 every week, and could see that the acknowledgement timestamp stopped. He opened the most recent report. It was not a report in the way of words and summary. It was a document, 3 pages. Annotated diagrams of the East Wing water filtration manifold, sketched by hand and then photographed, with notes in precise small handwriting identifying the position of a misaligned coupling, the kind of misalignment that, left alone, would within 6 to 8 months begin degrading the filtration membrane, requiring a replacement that cost more than 3 months of full household operating budget. The coupling had been reseated. The date of the repair was noted. The tools used were listed. The person who performed the repair was listed, herself. The report had been submitted to the maintenance coordinator. The maintenance coordinator had not opened it. Darev sat back in his chair. He opened the next most recent report, then the one before that. He read for 40 minutes. She had flagged the heating grid imbalance in the north guest suite, a suite that had been cool on one side and warm on the other for so long that a visiting dignitary had once commented on it and been apologized to. And Darev had issued an instruction to maintenance that had been logged and apparently lost. Calla had rebalanced the grid herself, with a calibration tool she had sourced from the household supply room, signing it out on a form no one had processed. She had noted in her report that the imbalance was caused by sedimentation in the secondary feed line, which she had flushed, and recommended the primary line be inspected on a 6-month cycle. She had attached a diagram. She had flagged that the front gate seal was worn on the lower left bearing. The gate had been sticking for months, and every member of Darev's household simply applied more force when opening it. She had replaced the bearing. She noted in her report that the replacement component she used was a 3rd-grade part because the 1st-grade part was not in supply room stock, and recommended the supply room maintain a minimum of 3 1st-grade gate bearings at all times. She had submitted that recommendation separately. He searched for the separate submission. He found it. It had been received by the supply coordinator 9 weeks ago and not actioned. He opened another report, another. He was leaning forward now, elbows on the desk, reading the way he read treaty documents, looking for the architecture beneath the surface, the load-bearing logic under the language. She had identified a structural crack in the east passage wall, a hairline fracture in the load-bearing column at a joint, the kind of thing that could be cosmetic or could be early stress propagation, requiring a structural surveyor to assess. She had submitted the observation to the maintenance coordinator on 3 consecutive weeks. On the 4th week, she had submitted it directly to the house architect's contact address. On the 5th week, she had walked to the administrative office on the ground floor and placed a handwritten note on the desk of the facilities manager. A surveyor had come the following week, confirmed the crack was cosmetic, prescribed a simple resin seal, and the work had been done. The surveyor's invoice was in the household records. No one had connected that invoice to the human domestic on the 3rd floor who had been the only person in the building who had thought to look at a wall joint and understand what she was seeing. She had noted, in a report submitted 4 weeks ago, that an attending ambassador during a formal dinner had mentioned, in a casual aside to a colleague, not directed at any staff, that his dietary tradition prohibited fermented grain in any form. She had attached the ingredient list from the kitchen store, circled the relevant item, and submitted the report to the kitchen coordinator at 11 in the evening, the night before the dinner, in time for the sauce to be replaced. The kitchen coordinator had not responded. But the sauce had been replaced. Darev checked the dinner record, no dietary incident logged, the dinner rated as successful by the diplomatic office. He called up the kitchen coordinator's shift log and found, buried in the account from that evening, a single line, received tip ray, Ambassador Cheller dietary, sauce variant prepared. Good catch by whoever flagged it. Whoever flagged it. He found her at the far end of the east corridor. She was on her knees beside an open floor panel, her torso half lowered into the access gap, both arms working at something beneath the decking. Her cleaning cart was positioned beside her with the precision of someone who placed things where they could be quickly reached, nothing pushed aside, nothing left in the walking path, the cart angled to maximize corridor clearance. She wore the standard household uniform, dark gray, practical, fitted for movement. Her hair was tied back. She was humming something very quietly, a sound barely distinguishable from the background hum of the building itself. Darev stopped 10 feet away and watched her work. She was replacing the pressure seal on a floor junction, the component that prevented moisture ingress into the subfloor plumbing access. It was not on any maintenance work order. It was not on any repair schedule he could locate. It was simply something she had noticed needed doing, and she was doing it. She became aware of him. He saw it in the slight pause before she continued, a single controlled hesitation, the kind that said she had registered his presence and decided to finish the task before addressing it. She withdrew her arms from the panel, checked the seal with her fingers, pressed it into its seat, and closed the panel over. She stood. She wiped her hands on the utility cloth at her belt. She looked at him directly, not the posture of someone caught out of place, but the posture of someone who was finished and was ready for whatever came next. "My lord," she said. "Calla Venn," he said. She waited. "How long have you been doing all of this?" he said. A brief pause, the look of someone determining which answer would be accurate rather than which would be safe. "Since I started, my lord." "Your employment file says your assignment is third-floor hallway cleaning." "Yes, my lord." "The filtration coupling, the heating grid, the gate bearing, the ambassador's dietary restriction." He held her gaze. "The floor panel seal you just replaced, which has no work order attached to it. All of that is outside your assignment." "The hallways connect to everything," she said. "When you walk them every day, you see what is changing. Once you see it, it is difficult not to act on it." "You submitted reports to the maintenance coordinator, to the kitchen staff, to the facilities manager." "Repeatedly, for months." "Yes, my lord." "And when those reports were not acknowledged?" "I found another way to get it done." Her voice was level, not defiant, matter of fact. "A house this size depends on its systems working. When the systems fail, people are inconvenienced at best. At worst, there are larger problems. Someone needs to see clearly enough to address it." Darev looked at her for a long moment, aware of a sensation he did not often have in his own home, the sensation of standing in a room larger than he had understood it to be. "You were here when Paul fell ill," he said. "2 staff resigned. Taras tells me you managed the household for the duration." "I continued doing what I was already doing," she said. "The difference was that some tasks Paul usually handled needed routing through me rather than him. I rerouted them. The kitchen supply order, the guest room allocation for the trade delegate from Veth Station." "Yes, my lord." The delegate rated his accommodation as the most comfortable of his circuit. He sent a written commendation. "I read it this morning." Something moved across her face, not quite pride and not quite relief, something more contained than either. She said nothing. "I want to offer you Paul Marin's position," Darev said. "He is recovering but has requested reduced duties. Head of household staff, formal supervisory authority, salary at the senior administrative grade." The silence that followed was not an overwhelmed one. She was thinking. "I would rather not, my lord," she said. He had not expected that. He let the silence run. "If I take a desk and a title, I become someone who receives reports," she said. "I stop being someone who walks the corridors. I will begin to see this house the way everyone who sits behind a desk sees it, as abstractions, numbers in a ledger. The filtration coupling does not appear in a ledger until it fails. The gate bearing does not appear until someone is locked out. The crack in the east column." She stopped. "The work that matters most is done by people who are present in the spaces where things happen. If you move me out of those spaces, the work will not get done. Someone else may do my cleaning. No one else will do the rest of it." Darev stood very still. "Then what do you want?" he said. She considered the question with the same care she brought to a filtration diagram. "I would like my maintenance reports to be read," she said, "by someone with the authority to act on them, not logged and left. Read." "That is all." "That is everything, my lord." He looked at her, truly looked, the way he had looked at the clean grill in his entrance hall, and understood for the first time that someone had removed the panel to do it properly. 21 years old. 19 days of managing his entire household without anyone asking her to, without a title, without additional pay. 3 months of walking every corridor in this building, and seeing it with a quality of attention that no one with a formal maintenance posting seemed to be exercising. "You will have a direct reporting line to me," he said. "Every report you submit will be received by my assistant and flagged for my personal review within 48 hours. Any item you mark urgent will be on my desk the same day." She held his eyes. She gave a short, precise nod, not surprised, not overwhelmed, as if she had simply been waiting for someone to say the obvious thing. "Thank you, my lord," she said. She turned back to her cart. She checked her tool case, confirmed each compartment was properly closed, and moved 12 feet further down the corridor to a section of skirting where the floor treatment had worn thin along the seam. She knelt. She opened her kit. She went back to work. Darev stood in the east corridor for a long moment after she had returned to her task. He had lived in this house for 9 years. He had walked these corridors thousands of times on the way to his study, to the dining room, to the gate, to the transit port. He had never once truly looked at them. The floor, the walls, the grills, the panels, the seals, the joints, 10,000 small components of a system he had never had to think about, because someone invisible had always been thinking about it for him. He looked at the corridor now. The clean grill, the bearing he had not noticed, was no longer sticking when he pushed the gate open that evening. The even temperature in every room. The dinner that had gone without incident because a human woman on the 3rd floor had overheard a single sentence at a party and written it down and submitted it to a coordinator who had not read it, and then found another way. The hallways connect to everything. He began, for the first time, to see them properly.